But let's just pull out those graphics for you once again of the cabinet portfolios, because remember, the attention is going to be focused on what each of these ministers actually achieves. If I could ask our producer to pull up those graphics of each of those ministers and what they've been allocated at this point of time. Let's go full frame with those graphics and give our viewers a sense of what portfolio each of those ministers actually has. Rajnath Singh has been given the portfolio of Home. Arun Jaitley, Finance, Defence and Corporate Affairs, though he has clarified that he will be having the additional charge of defence only until a cabinet expansion. Sushma Swaraj is the new External Affairs Minister. Ravi Shankar Prasad is the new Minister for Telecom, Law and Justice. He's been very vocal about the 2G scam. Well, the ball is in his hand now. He is the Telecom Minister of the country. Okay, we've got some great graphics for you. We've got an inside track on what the 5 pressing issues really are as far as each of these top 4 ministers is concerned. We've got Rajnath Singh, we've got Arun Jaitley, we've got Sushma Swaraj and the Defence Minister. Let's go across first to Arun Jaitley. You heard him speaking right now, but as Finance Minister, these are what we know to be his 5 pressing issues as Finance Minister. Immediately, Arun Jaitley, number 1, he will have to finalize inputs on the first budget because that's up in 6 weeks. That might sound like a lot of time, but it's absolutely nothing given the huge amount of detail that the new Finance Minister will have to go into. Moving on to the next point, his next priority is to mount a coordinated attack on inflation. This is a legacy of the UPA government. He's got no choice but to hit the ground running very quickly as far as inflation is concerned. Number 3 on Arun Jaitley's list as Finance Minister, he's going to have to evolve a tax policy roadmap and simplify the regime. This has been one of the top things on the BJP's manifesto as far as the financial system in the country is concerned. A simplified tax regime that isn't predatory is something that he will have to look at. Number 4 for the Finance Minister, rejuvenate the investment climate and bring back investor confidence. This is something that's so much easier said than done at this point of time, given the state of investment confidence right now. And finally, number 5, as far as Arun Jaitley is concerned, he's going to have to do things that spur growth. Much of this will have to be from the budget, but it will be growth critical sectors and manufacturing where his focus will have to actually be. Let's move on to the other big portfolio that Arun Jaitley has got. He's got the additional charge of defence as well, even though he has clarified that this is going to be something that he will only be holding temporarily until a cabinet expansion. He has no choice but to make decisions to speed up stalled modernization. The military doesn't have enough weapons. Deals are completely adrift as a result of the UPA government, elections, AK Antony, leaving things, not taking any risks. Decision number 2 under the additional charge of defense, he's going to have to bridge the civil-military divide. Remember, in the last few years, there has been a breach in the relationship between civilian control and the military authorities. There's a lot of distrust. This will have to be bridged. Arun Jaitley can play a big role, even in the additional charge of defense minister, in actually dealing with that. Number 3 on his list of priorities, he's going to have to revamp the indigenous military industry. Right now, India has the shameful distinction of being one of the world's largest importer of weapons, despite spending crores every year in indigenous research and development. Arun Jaitley will have to give his attention on how to actually revamp that. Number 4 on his list is going to be following up action on defense scams. The Tatra scam, the VVIP Augusta Westland scam, several other defense and military scams in the UPA's tenure will have to be followed up. CBI investigations, vigilance, all of these issues will have to be followed up. Finally, number 5 on his list as Defence Minister, he's going to have to upgrade border infrastructure and management, because this is where India's security will really be impacted, because it is at this point of time that we have relations with Pakistan on somewhat even keel. You've got their leader here in the country, but on the ground there are still grave problems. I'm going to give you the 5 pressing issues of the other 2 ministers, Rajnath Singh and Sushma Swaraj, in just a moment from now. But I want to go across to Gaurav Sawant, our editor of Strategic Affairs, who's still live with us for more on this story. Gaurav, the defense portfolio is all important. It can never be underestimated. But at this point of time, it's been given an additional charge. How are you reading this, Gaurav? Okay, we're just going to get Gaurav in just a moment from now, but let me just go back and get you what the 5 pressing issues of the other ministers are concerned. Let's pull up External Affairs, Sushma Swaraj. We've got those graphics coming up in just a moment. Sushma Swaraj is the country's new External Affairs Minister. She's currently in Hyderabad House. She's there. She's supporting those bilateral meetings that Narendra Modi is holding with the state leaders. But here it is. Formulate ways to keep the Indo-Pak process on. In just a couple of hours from now, Narendra Modi will be meeting Nawaz Sharif. But what happens after that meeting? This person will be very, very high on the list of persons, the group of people who will be driving policy as far as Indo-Pak relations are concerned. It will be controlled largely by the Prime Minister's office, but Sushma Swaraj will be entrusted with thinking out of the box, evolving new ways of keeping things on even keel. Number 2 on the list as External Affairs Minister, evolve a regional power strategy. This is already something that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has hit the ground running with, but she will have to keep the ball rolling as far as projecting India as a regional power is concerned. And what a day they've actually started with by meeting all of those leaders. Number 3, as External Affairs Minister, expand, empower India's diplomatic corps. Our diplomats in other countries, they will have to be empowered to take bolder decisions, to actually take more risks while they're in foreign missions and project India as a much more than just a regional power. Number 4, for Mrs. Swaraj as Defence Minister, as External Affairs Minister, she will have to follow up on sensitive immigration issues, Bangladesh, other places, what happens as far as these immigration issues are concerned. Remember, in this election itself, we've seen such inflammatory things said about immigration, but there has to be a policy basis, there has to be a solution for the immigration issues that India actually faces. And finally, number 5 on Sushma Swaraj's list, meaningfully harness the power of the diaspora. Successive governments have talked about how Indians abroad hold a lot of power. They're a very influential lobbying group. But at the end of the day, the simple fact is nothing has really happened. We've got the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, where powerful Indians from across the world are invited to India, but nothing really happens. Sushma Swaraj will be responsible as the Overseas Affairs Minister as well to give new life to that particular direction. And finally, the all-important Home Affairs Ministry, where Rajnath Singh, the de facto number 2 in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's cabinet, is going to have his hands really full as far as Home Minister is concerned. He'll have to formulate a fresh strategy against Maoists. That's going to be one of his overarching priorities. Now, whether or not he actually gets onto that immediately remains to be seen, but that is going to be one of the recommendations by the Home Secretary. Priority number 2, pressing issue for Rajnath Singh, overhaul intelligence gathering and coordination. By appointing a person like Ajit Kumar Doval as the National Security Advisor, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi has already indicated that the intelligence setup needs his direct attention. So it's a good sign that overhaul of intelligence gathering and coordination is going to be something that Rajnath Singh will get onto very quickly. Number 3 on his list as Home Minister, modernize and re-equip the police and paramilitary forces. This cannot be underestimated. The priority of getting onto this particular aspect, this priority cannot be understated. Police forces across the country, central police forces, paramilitary forces need new equipment, need new gear to actually take on the huge number of threats that they actually are engaged with. Number 4 on Rajnath Singh's list, revive the anti-terror mechanism dismantled by the Congress. This is hugely important. The BJP had spoken about this in their manifesto as well. Let's see how quickly Rajnath Singh can hit the ground running on reviving the anti-terror mechanism. And finally, number 5 for the Home Minister, consolidate gains against militancy in the Northeast. They've got a very strong, very powerful Minister for Northeast Development, General V.K. Singh, a former Chief of Army Staff who's also served there. But the fact is, right now, they have to consolidate the many gains that have been taken against militancy in the Northeast and ensure that the aspirations of all of those people actually takes place.